Hello, everyone, and welcome to this month's episode of Walk Worthy. I'm Erin.
And I'm Lindsay. And we have an exciting topic to talk about with you today. But before that, we have our drawing that people entered last month. If you missed it, it's okay. So just to catch you up, last month was our 1-year anniversary of Walk Worthy. We've been doing this for 12 months now. And so we did a drawing. People shared it on social media, things like that. So we're going to do that drawing. And do you want to draw it?
I'll let you pick.
Okay, great.
Pick it. Who's the winner? Lucky person?
I'm so excited. Jacqueline Hemstrom.
All right. Jacqueline Hemstrom is our lucky winner.
Yes. So we will reach out to you after this video comes out. That way you don't know before you hear your name drawn on live. It's not live, but you know what I mean. Anyway, we'll reach out to you on Facebook. We'll hook you up with that prize. Thank you so much for entering and sharing the video. So hopefully that maybe reached even farther than it has in the past because so many people shared it, which is awesome. So
this month, as we head into the holidays, Thanksgiving and Christmas, we are going to talk about hospitality because that's a big part of our culture, I guess, around this time of year. Mm-hmm. And sometimes that's easy for people and sometimes it's hard. Some people I know have families that are more difficult to be hospitable to than others. So we thought we would tackle this subject going forward, coming into the holidays.
Right. So today we have Mrs. I was going to say Miss, but that doesn't really make sense. Mrs. Tracey Helms with us. She actually is on staff here at the Rock. She has been on staff for 15 years. Is that what it is? And also heads up our hospitality ministry here at the Rock as well. So she is a woman that is very near and dear to our hearts, and we're so glad to have her with us today. So
yeah. And this is a big, for you, you're maybe one of the best people that I know at hospitality. Oh. You do, it just comes very naturally. You do a great job. So we wanted to pick your brain a little bit on that. And so I guess as we start, before we kind of dive into that, how did you grow up?
Okay, well, growing up, I was in a home with a single mom. So my early years, early elementary, single mom and my sister. So there was just 3 of us in the home. Grandma was very influential in my walk with the Lord at that time, I guess, introducing me to Christ. And every year at Christmas, I just remember going around Grandma's house and she would share the nativity story. After that, probably in late elementary, my mom got remarried. And so part of a blended family, my mom and dad both got remarried. So just dealing with that. And when my mom got married, her husband was from a different denomination than she was raised in. And so we didn't have church. We didn't go to church. They didn't practice their faith at all. We were kind of maybe Easter, Christmas. Sometimes my mom would send us to Sunday school, and I remember being that kid that, didn't know anything, but we did that. Then going on into high school, my family moved to Florida, and I lived with a family my senior year, and they were just great people, loved the Lord. She would go to church and that kind of thing, but I didn't really go with her. And then into college, my mom found her faith, and she was very on fire for the Lord and would start sharing things with me through my college years. But again, I would hear things but didn't understand. And then going into my married life, I got married after college. Again, not walking with the Lord, not really understanding, but doing things because my family did things. I got married in a church. Don't really know why, just because my family did that. And so at 28 years old, I was pregnant, 4 months pregnant with my daughter, and divorced. And that's when I surrendered my life to the Lord.
Would you have said before that you were a Christian before that time? What would you have said about your faith?
Yeah, I believed in Jesus. I think through my grandmother and just them introducing him to me or talking about God and Jesus, I knew that he was there. But to say that I was a Christ follower, absolutely not. No.
What brought you to the point where you realized you might know some things about God, but you didn't actually know him?
I feel like there was always something in my spirit. Like, again, I don't know if it's your conscious or if it's the spirit. I just feel like there was just growing up always maybe a higher being where I wanted to please him. Like, it was almost like he's looking down at me and I don't want to disappoint him growing up. But then I remember as a young child too, my grandmother would have verses out on her table and just love the Lord, and she would share any possible moment about the Lord. And again, it was just like hearing things but not really understanding because I just didn't understand. And she would say things in truths and try to convict me, but I didn't understand. And I remember her sharing one time a verse about that God would be the father to the fatherless. And when I was 28, like I said, going through my divorce, 4 months pregnant, and I was sitting in my daughter's room to be, and I just cried out to God, and I said, it just like that verse came to me like an audible thing, like, I will be the father to the fatherless. And that was the moment where I said, well, I must be this denomination because my grandma is. So I walked into the closest church to my house and started my journey there and haven't looked back.
Wow. That's an encouraging thing for parents or grandparents that are trying to sow into their kids' lives and maybe get discouraged and feel like you wonder if this is bearing any fruit or if this matters. But it did, that in the moment of need, you remembered that verse.
Absolutely.
And that changed your life.
Totally. And I know the Lord brought that to my remembrance at that time because, like I said, it was just a very dark place for me at that time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's an amazing story.
Yeah.
And you've been following Christ ever since.
Yep.
And your daughter's how old now?
She is 23.
Okay.
Yeah.
So 23 years ago.
Yeah.
And you've been working at church for 15.
Yes.
So a good portion of that time.
Yep.
And you've seen your faith grow. What has been the most maybe impactful thing for growing your faith?
I think it's people that have come alongside definitely at the beginning and just encouraging me and getting in the Word and learning who Jesus was. I think that has been the most impactful. And that's something I think for me, I just want to do for others, is just to introduce them to the Lord and just to have that hunger to be in His Word.
That's good.
So does that, your heart for hospitality, which is something that I know that you burn for and wanting to help get people connected and those things, where does that come from? Where does the fire for that come from?
I know it's for my love for Jesus. I mean, for sure. I think, again, just if you love the Lord so much, you just want others to experience that. And I feel like in my upbringing too, like some of the things I shared, there was lots of times when I think like even living with that family, you know, they were great people and went to church, but they didn't like share Him with me. They didn't share Jesus with me. And I know my grandmother did and my mom did, but I don't know. And I'm not saying that they did it right or wrong, but I guess encouraging people to get in there themselves. I never was encouraged to read the Bible myself. Like people would share verses with me and share things like it was supposed to be something that was going to change my heart. But it was me getting in the Word and seeing how God was speaking to me, you know?
So as we talk about hospitality, how would you define that to people?
How would I define hospitality? I define it as being the hands and feet of Jesus, is sharing that love, being intentional with people. Again, you can be in a room full of people and just looking for people that just, I don't know, need a hug, need somebody to talk to. It's not preparing the Thanksgiving dinner, you know? It's not just having somebody in your home to say, okay, I had somebody over for dinner, and that's being hospitable. It is, but if you're not sharing Jesus, then, or loving them like Jesus would love them, I think that's hospitality, is loving them where they're at and either showing them who Jesus is or nudging them to be more of a Christ follower. Maybe they're struggling in a trial and they just need some extra loving, and you're just there to help them through that. I mean, I think it wears many hats.
Yeah. It sounds like what you're saying, though, is that it comes back to your heart. It's not necessarily a list of things that we do. Like you said, it could be dinner, but it's not necessarily dinner.
Right. It's
more your heart toward people, a heart of love and welcomeness and openness, and I think even a willingness to be inconvenienced. You know, it's very easy to throw money at a problem, and you know, I gave money so someone else can feed somebody, or I gave money and they'll buy someone Christmas gifts. It's a lot more difficult to take that on yourself and be willing to be inconvenienced with your time and your energy, and to go do that and be that person is much harder.
Right.
And I think that does come naturally to some people more than others, but we are all still called to be that way because that was the heart of Jesus, you know, when He would come upon someone that was sick or broken and He would care for them, you know, not just because, I mean, He was the most compassionate and merciful person. And, you know, some of us aren't, it doesn't come as naturally to us, but we are called to it. And talking about inconvenience, you know, I've gotten to work with Tracey for several years now, and I just love, she lives that out, because there are times where people will be like, where's Tracey? And she had a lunch with somebody, but this person needed to be loved and poured into for 3 hours because they needed, but I'm saying like, it's a good thing. And, you know, she'll throw away anything for anybody because this person needs that. And you just live it out really well, not to like be like, Tracy's so great. But you
Yeah.
really set a beautiful example of that just by your heart and starting those conversations with people and always being ready, I guess, too.
Yeah.
Not necessarily having it be a planned event, but just always being ready to have those moments with people.
Yeah, and I was both convicted and amazed as I was studying for this and looking at the many verses that deal with it, because there are the couple that you kind of know, the one about don't neglect to be hospitable to strangers because some entertain angels, and there's one about practicing hospitality, and those were kind of the two that I could think of. And when I looked stuff up, I was like, wow, there's a lot in here about being hospitable, about caring for the stranger, about feeding the one that needs food. And I was like, man, I don't know if I'm as hospitable as I could be all the time. You know, it's easy when it's a planned event, like, okay, it's Thanksgiving, we're gearing up to be hospitable, you know, but to live that as a lifestyle all the time and be prepared to be inconvenienced, you know, like the Good Samaritan that stopped, he was the example. It was inconvenient. He spent his own money. He put the guy up in an inn. And that's a challenge. I was like, wow, I'm a little convicted.
And he didn't plan that. He didn't have to
No.
gear up for that. Like, he just saw it and did it because that's what he was supposed to do.
Yep. Right. And he was just one leg in the journey. I think maybe that's even important, that we're not always called to be the full provider of every need, but he stopped for him, he cared for him, he bandaged the guy up, he took him to a place and made sure he was kind of on his next leg, which is good to point out too sometimes, because there is wisdom in, you know, how, I don't know, hospitality even as well.
Yeah. Well, that's like even the family that I lived with my senior year in high school. I didn't really know them. They weren't family members. She just came up to my mom and said, hey, she can live with us her senior year. They were moving to Florida. And when you think about hospitality, I mean, these people were kind of strangers to me. I mean, I knew their daughter through sports, and their daughter was going off to college, so she wasn't even going to be in the home. So it was just me and her parents. And so it's kind of, you know, and so when I think of hospitality, I'm like, she just took me in and loved me and cared for me in a hard, like, senior year of high school when my family wasn't there. And that to me was just, that's love. Like and to this day, I still keep in touch with her.
That's
it's
cool.
just great. Like, so they're just special people to my life now too.
I like what you said about you being a stranger to her, because I think for me, it's easier to be hospitable, but it's like always the same people. Like, oh, this person's coming over. Like, okay, yeah, great. Right. But that's not necessarily hospitality, because, I mean, it is. It's not that it's not. And you can encourage people that are your friends and that you do have relationships with. But to be hospitable to the stranger, are you willing to do the same things and be prepared and be ready for someone that you don't necessarily have a relationship with? You don't necessarily, like, you're not really going to get anything out of it. And I think that's more difficult because there is a certain amount of risk that comes with that, a certain amount of awkwardness that comes with that. Right. You know, maybe your hospitality will be rejected by a stranger. Right. Yeah, those things are difficult, but I mean, that kind of pictures how we were with Christ as well, you know, and his hospitality towards us. So.
Yeah, and I was reading, it was saying in, I think, Leviticus, it said that you treat the stranger or the foreigner that comes into your land the same as the native born. Like, you should have the same heart of caring, the same openness, the same welcomeness. And it is, like you say, easy to get around the same type of people and be hospitable, but to be willing for the person that needs a meal or needs something to do that for the stranger is a mark of how hospitable we are, I think.
Right.
And that's hard.
For sure.
Okay, so what are you involved in now? I know there are some things that you do for hospitality that are scheduled things. What are those things?
So I help oversee, we have 4 hospitality teams that, you know, serve here. And so I help oversee that. But I guess the main push that we do in hospitality is it's not just opening the door and saying hello. It is actually connecting with the people. And, you know, again, finding that lonely lady that's sitting there that you have a conversation with, and then you have that conversation and realize that she just lost her husband 2 months ago and is broken, and now I can bring her over here to sit with these 2 ladies. And, you know, just helping people get connected. And but the team to, which I feel like we have a great hospitality team at the Rock, but just that they have that vision of caring for the people and connecting the people. You know, that's kind of what we do with the hospitality team. Again, it's not just the hello, hi, but can we pray for you? Can we, and again, just standing in a lobby and seeing people, you can see those that come out of a service and they're broken, and they might just need you to come up and, you know, just, are you okay? Can I help with anything? And just being intuitive to that and willing to go out of maybe your comfort zone to talk to them.
So when someone walks into either the church or your home, what do you want them to feel?
I want them to feel loved and to feel connected and just to feel like, I don't care where you've been, where you've come from, what you've done, you're accepted here and we love you.
That's good. That's a good answer.
Yeah. That's what I want you to feel.
Okay, so how does that, we kind of talked about the heart of hospitality, which I think the greatest example of that is Jesus.
Absolutely.
That verse that says we were far away and he brought us near. We've been adopted as his children if we know Jesus. But what does that look like maybe practically in the life of a believer? How do we live that out besides being ready in those moments? How do we intentionally do that? Not just maybe when it comes up. How do we pursue it?
Yeah. Again, I think it's just that love that we have for the Lord, that he left heaven and came to earth as a man. He loves us so much. Like, that's to me like the beautiful picture of hospitality, that what he has done for us and that we are sharing that with other people. And how do we do that? I think by being in his word and being convicted of the things that he is, teaching us and wants us to be in our walks with him. And I don't know. I don't know if that answers your question or.
Are there practical things? Is that what you're getting at? More like practical?
Yeah.
Like, what are some of the practical things that you do?
Okay.
On a weekly or monthly basis to love on people?
Okay. Well, I send text. I check up on people. I meet with people. If they just need something, I'll drop everything to go do something. I try to, like I said, just live for them. Like, like I said, I do. I drop stuff. I don't know. I guess I don't have like a checklist. Like, do this, invite this person to dinner.
Right, but it has become a part of who you are.
Yes,
to do those things.
Exactly. So I don't have like a list of anything, but it's just becoming the hands and feet of Jesus and loving people and being available.
So at a church this size, there are needs all the time.
Mm-hmm.
How do you might hop in with somebody for a lunch and get involved. Do you remember to check on that person? Do you write that down? Or do you feel like I did this lunch and then whoever God brings me to next? Do you know what I'm saying?
Right. No, I do have a thing called notes in my phone, and I will jot things down to remind me, because sometimes, again, with the number of people, and I do feel like people God has put into my life that I want to keep checking on, and if it was just left to me, I would probably forget. So yes, I do utilize some tools that way, but I don't know, the Lord does put people on my mind that sometimes they're not even on my radar, and he just puts them on your heart, and there's been times that I haven't been very great at like reaching out, and you realize that maybe I should have, like the Lord put that there for a reason, so I try to act on that more often than I used to, for sure.
What do you think keeps believers from being hospitable like they're supposed to be?
That, I think, sometimes is maybe insecurity. Fear of being rejected, maybe of I don't have the right words to say. I know those were some of the things I think I battled with at the beginning, especially at the beginning of my walk. Like, well, what if they ask certain questions? I don't know, And I think we just have to lay that all down and just be available to people. And, and sometimes it is just saying hello. There's so many times we're so busy in our culture. We got to do this. We got to go here. We got to take the kids here. We got to do whatever. And that we just forget about the people that are right there in front of us that just need a hello. Like, look in their eyes and just say, I see you and I care about you. That's all that people need.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, and I was thinking too, as you were talking about that sometimes we can even let selfishness be a thing because we don't want to be inconvenienced. We talked about that a little bit. But, it's so important that we model Christ because he emptied himself fully and came to earth to rescue and redeem us. And like you said, he was hospitable to us when we were far off, when we were enemies of God. Right. And how can we claim to be his disciples if we don't love in the same way that he loved? Right. And it's not always about having all the answers. I think a lot of times people just want someone to listen and to care. We have all this pressure of, especially in a tragedy, like I got to say the right thing. And
Right.
I mean, the reality is most of the time there's nothing that you're going to say that's going to fix it or make it better. It's just a tragic, awful thing that happened. But you can be in that with somebody.
Absolutely.
You can text them. You can send them a gift card. You can go sit with them and listen to them and just be there and let them know, I'm really sorry you're going through this. You're not alone. And I do love you. And that does count for something. That matters. And that's probably 90% of what you do at lunches and things is
Absolutely.
just listen and hang out.
Yeah. Yeah, I do. And
So
Well,
what would you
go
say?
ahead.
Sorry.
No, you go ahead.
What would you say to somebody that struggles with this? What should they do what can they do to be better?
Well, I think it's like anything. I mean, I used to say this saying, fake it till you make it, but I don't really like that one anymore. Because sometimes you do things and you might not be successful at it. And like you're trying to do something and it's like, oh, that didn't work. So I try it again, or I tried a different way. Like it's not going to work the same for me that it might work for you. And so I just got to keep trying to do what I know is right until it works for me. So yeah, I can't use the fake it till you make it anymore. You just keep doing it.
But I mean, kind of with that is sometimes you're doing things because you're being obedient.
Exactly.
You're not faking it, but you need to obey until it comes naturally to you to obey, until it becomes that part of who you are.
Right.
And it says practice hospitality, which
It takes practice.
it does. I mean,
It is.
it's an ongoing, and that word hospitality, even I was looking up in the Greek, means love to strangers. Like that we practice this until we get better at it, and that we do it without complaining. First Peter says, which is hard. A lot of times people will do the big Thanksgiving thing, but then they're grumbling about it the whole time. Well, that's not hospitality. Like, I had to make the potatoes and I had to make the pie. I've been cooking all day. Like that's not hospitality. That's not the heart of this. The heart of hospitality is I am giving up of myself and I am serving other people in the way that Christ served me, and doing it with a joyful, glad, happy heart. Because even when he was dying on the cross, he wasn't grumbling about it. That's not,
And when he said that too about practicing hospitality, and it was talking about pursuing, like it's constant, constantly pursuing, not a one and done. Like we are constantly pursuing hospitality.
Yeah, and I think we need to be aware, like we need to pay attention to this and be sure that we individually have the heart of hospitality. People like to sometimes get on the church organization and say, well, the church seems judgy, or the church is hypocrites, or the church is unkind or unloving. Well, the church is made up of a bunch of people. It's not an organization.
Right.
It's all of us. So if all of us are not hospitable, then the church will not be hospitable.
Right.
But we can change the culture of the church by being hospitable and open and warm and loving.
Yes.
And that's on us, every single one of us.
Yeah, absolutely. And you guys talking through it, I'm just like, gosh, I'm so selfish. Like, but really, I think for me, that is the heart of it. I just, okay, church is over. I'm tired. I want to go home and sit on the couch. And I think, everybody is so busy. We have Sunday afternoon plans. We have Saturday night plans. We're going to go to church. We're going to be done with church and then we're going to go because we have stuff to do, and there's no connection there. There's no looking for, the broken woman whose husband died 2 months. There's no eyes to see that because we're just looking at ourselves and our schedule and what we have to do. And it's just self-centered. And if we could look at others and look at the needs that might be there and see how we could serve them, that's hospitality. It's not just, I made a meal for dinner.
Right.
And I think a lot of people will say, I want to be used. I want to see the God use me. I wish he would. Well, but you're in and out of church in 30 seconds. You don't stick around for 5 seconds. You're leaving during the last worship song. I mean, no judgment, but I mean, maybe.
But maybe a little.
Maybe a little. But, because that really is about our schedule and our time, and we want to avoid traffic. And as I was doing this, I was thinking, well, you could also avoid traffic if you were the last out, if you stuck around for a while to chat with somebody. And some of the most amazing things have been God using me and making my faith real when I see him use gifts or put together a divine appointment. But when I'm too busy to even stick around to wait for that, then you're kind of like, you have this faith that isn't really active, and I know a lot of stuff, but it doesn't mean anything. I never get to see God use me. Well, I think if we all had a heart of hospitality, we could change our church culture. We could change the reach of our church because we could disciple more people if we all paid attention and looked around to each other to see what everybody around us needs.
Yes, for sure.
That's good.
It's good.
Preach.
So let's do that.
Yeah. I mean, it challenges me for sure.
Yeah, and me too, because you can be, I know Sundays after the last service, I'm tired and we have tear down to do. And you're kind of like, okay, the faster we roll the chords, the faster we get out of here.
100%. Yes.
But, you know, taking that moment, especially since I'm already there, I don't have to set an appointment. It's not a thing I have to get a babysitter for. I'm already at church, and there are people that need, like you said, just a minute of prayer or to check up on, hey, how's your mom doing? I heard she was sick, or you had surgery. Are you doing okay? You know, it's an easy, right there way to be hospitable toward one another. And if we could stop for a minute and just look to our right and to our left, just who's around us and who can I love on?
Right.
You have anything else?
That's all I have to say about that.
Okay, great. Well, thanks for joining us, Tracey. We're glad that you came and just shared your heart with us. That challenges me for sure. We hope that you were challenged and encouraged by this video today. And we're challenging you, I guess, to practice this hospitality going into the holidays. This is one of the easiest times to practice it. People are coming to your home or you're going to their home, and how can you serve others? How can you serve your family? How can you serve friends? Maybe a stranger that you see this time of year. So practice that. That's your challenge for this month, I guess. We've never done that before, but there you go. There's your challenge. So we're glad that you've joined us. We will see you next month. And until then, walk worthy.